think on the note of decentralization, I think, I mean, I'm not a very technical person. So for me, whenever I hear those things, I'm like, man, there's so many different layers to it, you know, than just node distribution, right? Or voting power distribution or governance, which is oftentimes labeled as, okay, if that's distributed, then yeah, it's decentralized. But maybe talk about in general, for especially the non-technical audience, what might be a big misconception around decentralization, and what layer does AKASH as a project actually aim to decentralize here?
Like, so, you know, absolutely, it's a good question. Now, if you look at decentralization as an onion, right, you start peeling different layers, right? Yeah, the outside of the onion looks great, but you really want to know how the inside is. So you start peeling different layers, then you'll start seeing attack vectors, right? Yes, the first layer obviously is governance, and you see that happen on MintScan, and people vote on it. People have the drama, the DPS metrics that we have in Algo. All those generate at the governance level, right? So, and you further peel down, you ask a question, who's actually writing the proposal? Well, either a validator, is it a community member, or is it like the real team member asking validator to do that? Most often than not, we have real team members that pretend validators to post the proposal. Then you take that out, and then you look at, okay, who's actually writing the code? Who actually decided to do this proposal? And you keep peeling the layers, and you ultimately discover there is just a few group of people that ultimately make decisions. And that's where decentralization breaks. So decentralization is, I mean, everybody has different definitions, but for me, it's about, you know, reducing or diminishing attack vectors that compromise a network. Right? That could be a human attack vector, that could be a technology attack vector, that could be a societal attack vector. Doesn't really matter. Removing those attack vectors to create most resilient systems. And so today, the attack vector, we have done a pretty good job in like decentralizing, you know, the different layers that touch the end user. But when it comes to institutional risks, right, we see that with regulatory enforcement. We see that with just, you know, monetary failures, just, you know, systemic failures, like we see with FTX and whatnot. We see quite a lot of institutional risk that is not very transparent to a lot of people, right? And so even Ethereum, as a matter of fact, Ethereum Foundation is still the steward of Ethereum, you know, development. They hold the keys for the GitHub. In that sense, Cosmos is a lot more decentralized as an ecosystem than Ethereum is, because ICF doesn't really control, you know, the flow, right? So we have like people like Osmosis and, you know, so many other protocols are now actually contributing to the core Cosmos source code, right? So now I feel like, you know, if you peel enough layers and you ask enough questions, you ultimately see like who's actually responsible for writing the code, who's actually responsible for defining the spec, you know, I think, and then you'll find answers. Now, besides, if you take the social, you know, risk away, then you had a technology risk, right? So Avalanche announcement was not a very exciting announcement. It is actually, you know, Amazon Web Services trying to sell Activate program. For those of you that don't know, Activate is a program Amazon has for attracting startups. So you get a bunch of free credits if you're a startup company when you apply to that program. So Avalanche was accepted in the Activate program. Anyone can apply for that. You don't have to be an Avalanche you don't have, you know, and what they've done is they've secured a deal so that Avalanche related startups can actually get free credits. Like every VC has that program. Like, you know, when you go to VC, they're like, oh, you get Amazon free credits because the VC goes to Amazon Activate and actually, you know, bargains a deal saying that, hey, I'm going to give you more users. You give some free credits to the users to hook them up, and then, you know, then it's just Amazon trying to sell more. And Avalanche, for some reason, decided to make that a big deal and, you know, pump their token up by 20%. So I don't know how good or bad Avalanche technology is, but things like this make it's kind of disgusting, to be honest with you. It reminds me of the VeChain people taking pictures in front of McDonald's and saying there's a partnership with McDonald's, right? Like, so I don't know, it's just sort of like disappointing that we see this sort of like gimmicks, we call them marketing gimmicks, that happen. And then the second part is like, well, do Amazon node providers running on Amazon, Avalanche node providers running on Amazon, does that make Avalanche more secure or more decentralized? I mean, sure, there's over concentration, right? So I'm not like, I think we fair to say we graduated the camp that AWS is bad or Google is bad, Microsoft is bad. I think really comes down to how much of node concentration power is at any given provider, right? What we want is heavily distributed node concentration rather than heavily focused node concentration. So it doesn't really matter if Amazon is running, as long as most nodes are not running on Amazon or a significant majority is not running on Amazon, you have less risk, right? So as a matter of fact, I would even welcome Amazon's effort to actually attract, Amazon and Google and Microsoft as well. We've seen quite a lot of like organized effort for these companies to recognize Web3. I think that's only going to play out better for Web3 instead of taking someone like Hetzner, who's been anti-Web3 and anti-crypto. That's not good for anybody, right? So I don't have a problem with Amazon. I do have a problem with Avalanche. I think that's just a very gimmicky, very bad way to make an announcement. So.
Yeah.